Diva Hustle Show. Motivate the glow. We get your more info. Flick to my head to toe.
Hey, you guys, thanks for tuning in to the Diva Hustle Show. Today, my guest is Victoria, I'm sorry. Thanks for tuning in, Victoria. How are you?
Great. How are you?
I'm fine. Victoria is an entrepreneur. Her family came over years ago. When they came to America, they had pennies on the dollar and was homeless. Now Victoria has a company that average over millions of dollars, and she's on Shop HQ.
Yes, I am on Shop HQ every month, once a month. Yeah.
Okay. So tell us about your journey of becoming an entrepreneur. How did you start making jewelry?
So when we first came from South Korea to here, life was just kind of unbearable. I went to school, and in the worst part of LA, I think, if not the worst, probably near the near the worst. Kids came to school with like switchblades, guns. I mean, I used to see all this like sirens all the time.
Hmm.
Things are pretty bleak at that time, but um, I still felt like, God didn't put me on this earth so I could starve and, just be miserable and then just die. I need to find why I'm there. I'm supposed, what was my purpose anyway? So, I was just 13, but and I helped my parents kind of raise my younger siblings. I'm the oldest of the five.
Hmm.
So I did all that. And then when I grew up, I realized that I didn't really have a childhood.
Hmm.
At 13, I just became a parent to four children. And then in some ways, I became a parent to my parents too, because, they had to learn the culture. They didn't speak English, all that stuff. Not that I spoke either, but as a child, you learn it faster.
Hmm.
So when I grew up, I realized the one thing that was off the table was for me to hire some nanny who's going to raise my kids while I went to work, which is what my parents did to me.
Hmm.
So I just decided, like, since I'm an artist, I like to paint, draw, that I was never going to make any money anyway. They told me artists, like, they don't make any money until they die, which is true. So
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah, I figured that I'm just gonna, I'm not gonna make any money either way.
Hmm.
So I might as well really enjoy my life. I might as well be present for my children. So I wanted to make 2 grand a month,
Hmm.
and so that I could, basically make a comfortable living at that time. I didn't ever, think about owning a home. I had a car that was 100,000 miles old, which I thought would buy me 5 years.
Hmm.
So I started this little company, and I started jewelry because the jewelry market at that time in America in 1989, they sold it to, even to this day, it's true. A lot of this is true. They sold it for more of a snob appeal, more as a status appeal.
Hmm.
This is a 2 carat diamond I got for whatever. Like, they didn't really have style. They didn't have like sentimental value that it should have. Because
Hmm.
jewelry is really bought to celebrate milestone moments, some of the most important moments in your life, like weddings, graduations, birthdays.
Right.
And I felt like there was no style. People would just go buy like whatever the most expensive thing they can afford.
Hmm.
So, and the jewelry was sold that way. If you have a bigger rock, you are more successful, you're more beautiful, you should have more friends.
It symbolizes class. Yeah.
So I decided that, I mean, surely there must be somebody who appreciates some beauty. So I started my company, and I didn't even have money to make a single sample.
Okay.
So I basically just, sketched them out. And backing up a little bit, when I didn't speak English, I went to school the first day. I didn't speak one word of English except hello.
Hmm.
And, if I had to go to the bathroom, I would draw the toilet. So
Wow.
I learned how to draw, almost like Pictionary. I learned how to draw. Like, so those drawing skills, and later on, I drew just to communicate. I didn't care if they liked the drawing or not, but I drew to communicate in the beginning. And then as I went to, like, 16, 17, 18, I had no friends.
Hmm.
If you don't speak English and you don't understand the culture, it's hard to have great friends because you can't communicate.
Hmm.
Plus, I was always busy. So, when I grew up, 17, 18, 19, I felt like, I was depressed a lot. I was sad. I felt sorry for my parents. So at that point, I didn't have to draw to communicate, but I drew to express my feelings.
Hmm.
So later on, when I became a jewelry designer, that drawing skill came in very handy.
Mm.
My jewelry is all about feeling. My designs are all about, the feeling, the optimism, the natural beauty. When I'm designing 10 different butterflies, one of them might be, just landing on a flower, another one might be flight.
Mm-hmm.
Another one might be just a baby that's, being born. So, everyone is different. I mean, I've
Okay.
designed over 15,000 styles, but they're all different because it's a feeling at that moment that I'm creating this.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, I catered to working women. At that time, a lot of women went to work for the first time outside the home in managerial capacity. They weren't like, coffee girls.
Mm-hmm.
They used to have titles like Girl Friday. Go figure.
I
True.
know. I know. I know. Yeah.
So, we were the first group of people that had titles like, marketing manager, director, or whatever. We didn't really do vice presidents at that time, but, they were making good money and they left their children home. So, I really talked about in my marketing messages, the things that you could leave to your children for heirloom pieces. You can look polished. You can look like you exude success. You take care of yourself, a little femininity. So my jewelry was very wearable during the day, and it was really work-related jewelry. So marketing-wise, it just worked out pretty good. So, interesting thing is I really just wanted to stay at home with my children. And so I worked like 6 to 8 a.m. every day. And 6 to 8 a.m. in California is midday in Europe. It's like 11 to 2, depending on what part of Europe. There's like 48 countries over there
Right.
that fit in that time zone. So I was able to contact them at that time. I would drop my kids off at 8:30, and then I start working again at 9 for East Coast time. But 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I would pick up my kids, and then I didn't work for the rest of the day until they went to bed.
Mm-hmm.
9 p.m. California time is noon. Yeah, it's about noon the next day in Asia. So then I opened all these stores in Asia as well.
Okay.
So by the time opened like Neiman Marcus, Nordstrom's, I was already a global brand.
Wow.
I was able to say my merchandise is sold at Harrods, Takashimaya Japan, Galeries Lafayette in France. So I worked those hours. I basically worked 6 to 8, and then 9 to 11, and then I worked, just at the time that they were in school. And I worked that for years and years and years, and I ended up doing, the first year it was kind of tough, but I would say in the first 18 months I did more than $1 million.
Wow.
And then within the next 3 years I did more than 10 million.
Wow.
And
So
then,
did you find it hard trying to get your jewelry in the stores because you was a new startup company?
yeah,
So what's some of the obstacles that you have ran into and how did you get around them?
everything. Um, okay, first of all, if anybody's listening, okay, I'm just going to give you a tip here. It's really, really important you listen to this. When, there's no reason why anybody should say yes to you. Okay,
Right.
you are going to get no a lot. You're going to get no. It's assumed. In fact, if you get no's, you're lucky.
Mm-hmm.
Most of them don't even bother writing back to you,
Mm.
right? Like most of them just ignore you. So
Right.
when you get a no, for whatever reason they give you, that's your starting point. So when they say no, read, some people just get, ticked off. Oh my God, another no. But read what they say because that's your feedback.
Okay.
So first thing you should do is, so for example, like when I contacted the Harrods, London buyer, like, I would fax her, in those. So drawings, like if I do a black and white drawing, it's like 20 seconds or something. So it's very inexpensive to send it, even though it's international. And, she would write me and say, thank you so much for sending, this is not for us or whatever. Okay. Soon as that thing comes in, I would call her and say, you know what, thank you so much for, taking the time to write back to me. And, I understand, completely that, this is not for you. I'm new. I'm like a brand new designer. I have no idea what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can indulge me and just give me feedback on, just any one of those items,
Right.
which one has the most potential and what would I have to do to improve myself so that I can, I feel comfortable sending you something else in the future, and you'd be surprised how many times somebody actually would give you their opinion. If you just ask,
Right. Right.
So when she gives you an opinion and says, oh, on page 26, because I send like page 1 of 2, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
I like that, but it's a little too big. I think it's going to be expensive or whatever. So I would then say, so what you're saying is you love the design, but you don't like the scale of that. Is that right? And she might, say, well, yeah, yes and no. And if you had a matching pendant, whatever. So 3 or 4 times a lot, down the line, you have become a friend of hers. You've actually designed everything according to her specifications, right? So at some, and if you do this with everybody, at some point you are going to open the door.
Right. That's true.
You know, it's not like you're never going to get, look, today, some people tell me, oh, but you did your, business in 1989 and things were easier. Yeah, BS. Things were not easier. Okay.
I think that people have this misconception that you have to be making X amount of dollars, let's say $1 million before, let's say, Neiman Markets or Saks will allow you to put your brand in their store. I think that's a misconception that everybody has.
Well, let me tell you how I got into Neiman's. So before that, before I even went to Europe, what happened was I lived, about 20 miles away from the Neiman Marcus Beverly Hills. Okay,
Okay.
so like East LA, South Central, these are all about 20 miles from Beverly Hills. Okay, so like Neiman Marcus on Wilshire and Rodeo Drive, there's a Neiman Marcus on the one side, on the west side, and then the east side is Saks Fifth Avenue on the same corner. I had my sketchbook, and I made a really nice, like it wasn't rough sketch. It looked almost 3D.
Hmm.
And I only had about 15 styles there, and I only planned to give her like 8. I didn't, because I didn't think like she would have the patience to go through that, and I was like a really young clueless girl at that time. So I went over there and I checked out the store, and I got a hold of this lady across, like she was standing behind the counter, and like her little tag says she was an assistant manager. So I just asked her. I said, I'm not a shopper or anything like that, but I have these drawings here, and I just told her I'm embarrassed to show this to you
Hmm.
because you see the best of the best of the best. Okay,
Hmm.
like this is like the Hollywoodville. You see the best, and but I was just wondering if there's any way you can give me some ideas on the type of jewelry designs that might sell, because you see the best. You have some great clientele. I don't expect to sell anything. I don't have a company. So I showed her my sketchbook, and she what is she gonna say, right? She just kind of looked at a couple of pieces, and then eyes just lit up, and she's
Hmm.
like, "Oh my God, I can sell all of these. I can sell every one of them."
And this is assistant manager. Okay.
And I said, "Really?" Because I am more. There's nobody more shocked than I was. I was like, "Oh, okay." I said, "So which ones?" Because literally, I can sell every one of these. And I said, "Well, for like how much money would you sell it for?" Because I didn't have to price anything.
Hmm.
And she said, "Oh, it doesn't even matter how much it is. They'd buy everything." And I was like, okay, so because most people I knew at that time, like they were struggling to buy something for $20. So I'm just trying to figure out what this, woman is talking about.
Hmm.
And she said, like where this store is, most of my customers don't want anything in the case. They want something that's in the lookbook or something that's coming down the pipe that nobody has. They don't want anything in the case.
Hmm.
So, but she said, your designs are absolutely beautiful. We can sell it. So I just thought like, okay, she said, if you can leave the sketchbook, I will start calling my customers.
Hmm.
So, I was too naive. I just left it there. Next day, I thought, I wonder if that woman was like really kind of just optimistic, or maybe she just wanted the drawings or whatever.
Hmm.
So, a couple of days later, I recreated the designs, and then I went to Saks Fifth Avenue across the street. I got the exact same response from her.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
then I thought, okay, well, that both women can't be that crazy. But I also knew that rest of America didn't live like that. So
True.
then I went to, all the other stores, in the valley. I went to the stores near the beach. I went to stores, all the different, I got in my car and
Hmm.
I repeated the same thing. And so I ended up with like 8 styles that I felt that I could sell to almost everybody around, so that's how I basically ended up creating the very first few samples. You know,
Wow.
I just, but look what I did. I already test drove it.
Hmm.
I already, I didn't waste any money on making samples until I knew I had a buyer for it,
Right. Right.
right? So, and once I got that, once I got, got manufacturers and people to actually make the pieces that I had, then I was able to, like use all that time. I realized like I can't be driving all over the place, holding trunk shows, do all this stuff with my kids. So that's when
Hmm.
I started, contacting the overseas people. So I would say if you have an idea, especially for those of you who are creative, and you're all creative. We're all born with the same creative gifts.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, our schools teach us not to be creative. By the time
Right.
kindergarten, to conform,
Mm-hmm.
and you're not going to make any money if you're an artist, kind of thing. So, but you are all creative, and you are going to be feeling vulnerable, and I guarantee you're going to get lots of no's.
Right.
But I love it when people say no.
Okay.
I always wonder, like, if somebody says yes right away, like, what's wrong with her? What business? Shouldn't she be asking me questions? So yeah, I love the feedback, because rejection is feedback. That's all that is.
Right. That's all it is, really. So, how did you end up on having the slot on HSN?
So I didn't call on them. I didn't even know who they were, actually.
Okay.
When I went there in '89, HSN was a tiny little company, and TV shopping really hasn't had its finest day yet. Like, we were still, like, as a country, we were still, like, calling the 1-800 number in the catalogs, right?
Right.
So the whole TV shopping thing was kind of like really new. And but HSN at that time, they wanted to, like, really get known for what they are, because they were like one of two networks, and QVC was a lot smaller at that time.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having a really hard time letting people know, like, they're there. So they called me, because they used to see my merchandise on United Airlines, Delta Airlines, all the airline catalogs, would have my stuff there. They saw me at Neiman Marcus inside the catalog, outside all the, all of the, and they would see me in Harrods, all the magazines all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
So they called me and said, we would love to have you. And I was like, okay. I said, really, to be honest with you, I told the then manager, I would never say it today, but at that time I said, like, I just thought, like, that was like a grandma shopping. No, I don't want to be there. I want to be there. I mean, I told him, like, I'm at the finest stores around the world. Like, I don't know. That's such a huge risk.
Right. It
So they basically kind of, really, the people that I was dealing with at that time, they were just amazing, amazing visionaries. They understood that they needed some great brand, great, fresh perspective on things, people that were real, that would, relate to their audience, real people, authentic stories, and high quality stuff. So I, kind of got on the bandwagon, mostly because they sold me on the idea that if this thing works, I would only have to fly to Tampa once a month.
Okay.
And then I wouldn't have to fly to, Dubai and all these places. Like, and it was really hard on my body too, because, it didn't matter if I was going to Hong Kong, Dubai, or London, I would always come back the very next day,
Right.
like you're flying for 26 hours for an 8-hour meeting, and I'm flying back 26 hours because I
Right.
had kids.
Because you had the kids.
Yeah. So they really kind of, you can take the red eye, go to Tampa, do the show, and come back on the same day. You would only work once a month.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, well, I have to make that work then. So that's what happened.
And so now you're at Shop HQ.
Mm-hmm.
So how?
Yeah.
So how you like it?
I love it. So what happened was, at HSN, I was there almost 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, I originally thought I would, I always told myself, I'm not going to be one of these people that's working until she's like 80, and, when she's like taken off air because she's not performing anymore, I'm going to walk out on my own. So, and I also told, when my husband and I started our company, we were literally both broke, completely broke. So we said to ourselves, if we ever succeed, we're going to remember where we started. Mm-hmm. Like, we started with no money. We started to struggle to pay, like, our apartment bill, which was up $1,200 a month. Mm-hmm. So when we had a rough time, we would always come back and say, remember, all we wanted to make was $2,000 a month, and like, we shouldn't be bitching about it. So, but we also had a number. Like, when we hit a certain number, we want to get out. Okay, enjoy life. And that number, I reached it like in 2000. And I actually retired in 2017, so I stayed at 17 more years. So I thought, you know what, like, I want to leave, and I want to do all the things that I always wanted to do when I retire. Like, I want to write a science fiction. I want to do this. I want to do this. So I did all that. And I did all that in 2017, and then I was. So the president of HSN at that time when I was building my business. He retired, became president of Tommy Hilfiger.
Mm.
After that, he then became president of Shop HQ.
Okay.
So he said, since you're retired, why don't you come and, help us on this network? And I told him, you don't understand. Like, I just don't want to work anymore. Like, I don't, I'm done with that, So he said, you know what, we'll take you, even if you just want to work like 10 hours a year or 10 hours a day, like we'll take you anyway you want to work,
Right.
so we'll work around, your needs and your schedule. So he made that contract like really kind of palatable and appetizing for me. So I did it, and now I work like a lot less demanding schedule, and I work when I want to work, and I'm able to do my podcast. Like, I love that. I love my podcast because I get to interview like just amazing people, and I love being on podcasts like you, like you
Yeah.
as well. So I love that part of my life. And then the other thing I do is I actually help a lot of women to follow their dreams.
Okay.
I feel like as a society, and I'm not trying to be political by any means, but when I travel to, I've traveled to like 48 different countries, and I see all these cultures. Yes, there are cultures that, women have less advantages. There are all that, but there's no society that asks of a woman more than our society.
Oh yeah.
Our women actually have to go to work, earn a living, then comes home. She's still doing majority of the housework, and if she's not doing the housework, she's making sure that it's getting done by somebody.
Yes.
She's the one that's really, you go to any workplace, if you have a female leader holding a meeting, she's the one that makes sure there's food there, the drinks there. She's the one that does all this stuff, and she's the one that makes sure that everybody walks away with something. Like she'll rarely have a situation where one person walks away with everything.
Right.
So we ask our women so much, and there's very little support system.
No, it's not. It's not.
And we have like made it okay for our culture for women who are successful to really not only compete with men but compete with other women, and so it's time to stop comparing and competing. And I really would like all the women to collaborate and to lift other people. So I'm really on that journey now. So that's why I started my podcast, Million Dollar Passion, and wrote my how-to book.
Okay.
And I'm also very passionate about teaching our young children from early on the relationship between money and life, because we teach math, calculus, geometry. I mean, I'm sure they're good for some part of our life, but I don't know how to use it.
I know. Tell me about it. Like, when do you learn how to prove
one. Yeah, tell me about that.
Geometry. I can't never remember using it.
Yeah, exactly. So you go to school, and the kids, the lucky ones actually go to college, and then they're highly influenced by the first kid they meet that's got a few $100 in their pocket. And I want teaching the spirit of entrepreneurship really means you're teaching them the spirit of can do. So I want them to have a little taste of that early on in their life journey, so that look, there's nothing wrong with you working for any company,
Right.
but still, like, financial literacy starts very young. And I think that especially in our cities, like, I know what it's like to grow up in that environment, because we didn't have anything, and it's completely unnecessary that those conditions exist today in 2022 in America.
That's true. And so where can people listen to your million dollar passion podcast?
So people can go to Apple, Spotify, Google, all of the platforms for Million Dollar Passion. And also, if you are an entrepreneur or you want to start but you don't know where to start, you can sign up for any one of my free webinars. And it's interesting because every time I say that, so many of the podcasters themselves actually end up in some of my webinars, because like the power of storytelling. Those of us who are on TV, as we talked about briefly, before we went on air, on TV, on national TV, we have to do several $1,000 a minute every minute you're on. So we have to really learn to tell our stories very efficiently and effectively in a way that really resonate with your audience emotionally, like on an emotional level, so they start to act. And I think that that's a really important skill that a lot of people don't have, because well, I've done these webinars, and so many women are like, well, yeah, but Victoria, you're you, and I'm a nobody. And I'm like, no, your name doesn't say to nobody. Your name says you are, Jane, whatever, and you're not a nobody. And I said, she goes, but nobody's gonna care. I said,
Mm.
they're gonna care. I care, and your audience better care, because otherwise you're not gonna have a business.
Right.
If they
That's
don't
true.
love you, they don't like you, and they don't respect you, and they don't feel something for you as a person, you're gonna have a tough time as a small business person to get ahead.
Yes.
So, being authentic and being vulnerable, especially for those of you who are creative, if you're trying to become a graphic designer, singer, or whatever, you're not going to be perfect. You're going to have some
Mm-hmm.
stuff that sucks. Like I have a lot of stuff that sucked on air. you know? Trust me. I mean, I could probably write a book about that one, the 500 things that failed on TV. But, when you share your vulnerability, when you show it, when you are brave enough to say, look, I'm not perfect, but I'm trying, you cannot believe how many people not only will cheer for you, they'll make it their mission to make sure you're successful because you did it.
Yes. Yes.
So I feel like, to recap this conversation, number one, you are going to be rejected. If you do, you're lucky because you're getting feedback. Okay. So
Right.
rejection is feedback. The other thing I'm going to tell you is, without failure in something, there is no success.
Sure.
It's as simple as that. Without rain, there's no rainbow. It's really simple. So embrace all your failures, because and learn from that. Just say, you know what, I fell. I fell like 4 times today. Hey, look. If you're like, Olympics is coming up, right? Take a look at downhill skiers and find me one person who never fell.
Oh yeah, they always fall.
They fall. The better you are, the more they fall. So when you fall, because a lot of, especially female entrepreneurs, the first thing they do is they're like, oh my God, I thought this was going to do really well, but it didn't do well. So I don't know, like, should I fold up?
Trust me, I know. I started a fashion accessory line, a jewelry line. It was called like the Candy Shop. It didn't do good. So again, it didn't. You got to learn from it. You learn from your failures. So I re-ramped, and I was like, that's just wasn't my passion. The jewelry part of it. I like jewelry, but that part of it, because I didn't make it myself. I didn't have control over. I didn't like what was being put out.
Right.
So then I came out, re-ramped. Now I'm re-ramping that business again. So but you had to fail. I wouldn't have never learned that unless I failed.
Right, you fell. Okay, so now maybe you don't go right back into that business.
No.
You go, you know what? I love the designing part, and I love, I know what women want, and I know what price point, I know their behavior, but it doesn't have to be jewelry. It could be clothing. It could be hair accessory. It could be whatever. But whatever you learn from that, no one can ever take it away from you, and it's valuable. It's very
It is. Yes.
So whenever you fall, so now what happens is, like, say you were lucky enough to have family members or a spouse or significant others, say, that's so stupid, Victoria. Like, don't quit. You can do it. You can do it. So you go do something, and then you fall again. That time you definitely fold. Like, no, stick it out. Because, if you ever look at actors, I was listening to Denzel Washington give some sort of a graduation speech. And it was really interesting because he was giving this speech at this stadium. It was like a creative, it was like a theater kind of a school. He was doing a graduation speech, and he was master of ceremonies. And it was happening at the very stage that he did his audition in. Okay.
Oh, okay.
He says, I went on audition after audition after audition for years and years and years. And he decided he's going to give up. It wasn't going to be, worth, his time. He had given it a good try. And, but he had booked an audition that day. Then he, instead of like canceling and not showing up, and he said, I had zero chance I was going to get it, get the part, because I tried out like 4,000 times before. Nobody wanted me. But he said, I signed up. I had a spot. And, the best thing to do is show up and give it your best and then leave. Like, I didn't want to leave it, like people are like, the guy didn't even show up. He showed up and he got the part.
Wow.
And that is that, I forget what the part was, but he said that was the beginning of his success.
Wow.
So, but the moral of the story is, he says, most actors will spend 10, 15 years and they'll quit just before they find the success.
That's true. I believe that.
So the same thing, when you're in your business, don't dream this massive big thing like, oh, I'm going to make $10 million first year. I mean, and you probably got some problem, a lot more problems than I think you have. But if you sit there and, have realistic but aspirational goals and you come a little short, next time you'll come just a little bit closer and a little bit closer. And at some point you get to the point where you're going to start to build momentum. And when you get that momentum, nothing can stop you, because by the time you build a little momentum, that means that you have figured out all the parts of the business that works. All you have to do is scale things out.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I'm just here to tell all of you that there is really hope, and you cannot ever underestimate the power of resilience. You just got to be resilient. Focus on, things that are working. Even if nothing else is working and there's two things working, hang on to it and keep on going.
Keep on going. Yeah, that's true. So where can people get in contact with you if they wanted to reach out to you?
Yeah, they can come to victoriawieck.com. You can sign up for any of my, the freebies classes. I do have videos and, all the resources there. You can also do book a consulting call if you want to. It's like a 15-minute thing. I can't afford more time than that because I have so many people calling me. But also, that my mastermind class. I mean, my podcast is like every episode is supposed to be like a mastermind.
Okay.
That I bring you only transformation stories. Most people I interview on my podcast, but I would say 80% of them have no college education.
Right.
There are people that transform their lives from, really in a tough place to a multi-millionaire business by having passion and purpose in their life.
Sure.
So, and they share, mostly a lot of things that went wrong and they learned from it. So my podcast is really supposed to be about showing you all the things that could go wrong. All these people that have seen the landmines that you don't know yet exist, right? So that it prevents you from doing that. And also just, I don't know about you, but like for me, when I listen to anybody's podcast, if I get one thing that I didn't know before, it was worth it.
Yeah. Yeah. You learn something new. Yeah, it is. It's worth it.
Yeah. Educate yourself always. And you'd be surprised. Most of the education is not coming from some Harvard MBA class. It's coming from everyday people. You know what I mean? It's coming from everyday people who's paid a price. So, everyday people like you and me, all the audience members. So, yeah, if you can just check out Victoria Wieck, WIECK.com. And if you want to ever catch me on TV, you can check into shophq.com. And, I'm going to be on like once a month. Usually I'm on once a month for about 3 hours.
Okay.
Unless, sometimes I'll be on like 6 hours straight, but it's a pretty massive job to be talking, like, at that pressure level for 2 hours. Yeah.
Well, thank you for stopping past. Like at the Diva Hustle Show, the whole purpose of our show was to give entrepreneurs and women a platform to be able to discuss their business. Like you're saying, we need more unity in the female community because we're all in the same journey trying to go forward.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And we have to support each other in any way we can. So I just think you are a badass. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to give us some insight and, just keep up the good work. Keep pushing.
And you too. I mean, I
Thank you.
think providing a platform for other women is really noble and it's a great cause. And, anything I can do to help you or your community now or in the future, just let me know. I'm all about giving back and, collaborating and, not competing or comparing. That's just self-destructive.
It is.
Yeah. Thank you so much, my dear.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
All right.
Diva Hustle Show, show, show. Diva Hustle Show, show.